right, welcome everyone. I appreciate you joining us here. Hopefully you've enjoyed our afternoon sessions as much as we have. It's been an inspirational day, and overall, I think everyone can agree the time is now. But right now, the time is now for our elected official of the year award. And I'm not going to do a drum roll because I still don't have a sound effect for drum rolls even after all this time. But I would like to introduce Melissa Gutierrez Sullivan, who's our vice chair of our executive committee and VP of Sustainability and Wellness at Cushman & Wakefield. Melissa?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Wanted to make sure my mute was off. So I'm so honored to announce the Elected Official of the Year award and a little background on the award itself. It is meant to honor an elected official who has either championed an important project or a piece of policy in the calendar year or demonstrated a legacy of commitment to environmentalism, sustainability, and support of our community. This year, I'm honored to be presenting the Elected Official of the Year award to City of Los Angeles Council member Mark Ridley Thomas on his ongoing leadership on equity, environmental justice, and for his career in public service. A little bit of background on Mr. Thomas. He was first elected to public office in 1991, and he served on the LA City Council for nearly a dozen years, representing the 8th District, which covers most of Western South Los Angeles. He later served 2 terms in the California State Assembly, and then he represented the 26th District in the California State Senate. He served as a member of the LA County Board of Supervisors for the 2nd Supervisorial District from 2008 to 2020, until he being elected to the City Council again. Mr. Thomas is very attuned to the environmental challenges at both the policy and grassroots level. He has supported the county's ban on single-use plastic bags, developed LEED certified buildings throughout the 2nd District, and also beautified, revitalized, and developed hundreds of acres of parks, trails, and recreational spaces. He is the founder of the Empowerment Congress, the region's most successful initiative in neighborhood-based civic engagement, and forerunner of the City of Los Angeles's neighborhood council system. 2 projects I'd like to highlight here. One is his work in sustainability, and community. Is his major support for the revamp of the Natural History Museum, which is has a sustainable exterior, and also now the Magic Johnson Park, which is being presented on Saturday, also hugely sustainability park focused on LEED and in the community center. So, and with that, I'll pass it over to Becky.
Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas here. It is with deep gratitude that I accept this award from the U.S. Green Building Council, Los Angeles. Thanks to the Executive Director, Ben Stapleton, to the entire board, and to the Planning Committee, and to all of the members for this recognition. Your commitment to environmental justice helps inspire public service in this moment of consequence. I believe it is more important now than ever to promote environmental justice and sustainability through an equity lens. When I think about the work that this council has been behind for so many years, I know you understand that there is no more important aspect to our sustainability agenda than the work to create safe and environmentally sustainable homes for all members of our communities. We need more housing, and we need it now. Only with more housing will we be able to scale up our response to the greatest moral crisis of our time, and that is homelessness. And establishing a right to housing would create a framework through which this can be achieved. I'm proud to have the opportunity to continue to advance this agenda at the Los Angeles City Council, both as chair of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee and as vice chair of the Energy, Climate Change, Environmental Justice, and River Committee. Because my goal is to take the advocacy and ideas I hear from all of you and put them into practice. It is critical that impacted communities, especially those most vulnerable, are at the table as we make decisions about our environment, our housing, and our infrastructure future. As one way of continuing the conversation, I invite you to join the Empowerment Congress's Equitable Economic, Environmental, and Community Development Committee, where community members and stakeholders from all sectors are empowered to share their ideas and their concerns as it relates to the environment, equity, affordable housing, and even more. Please visit the Empowerment Congress website, www.empowermentcongress.org, to learn more. Thanks again for this exceptional award for being leaders in advancing our green infrastructure agenda. This is the moment where we need your continued leadership to ensure a Los Angeles that is all that it can be and must be for generations to come. Thank you. Be safe and be well.
Congratulations again to Mark Ridley Thomas for his career of service. Well deserving of the award this year. So thank you. Next up, I would like to introduce Christine Harada, who is our board chair here at USGBC-LA. She's been in service now all of, I believe, two months now. And she serves as Vice President of Government Affairs at Heliogen. And it's been an honor to know you, Christine, and I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ben, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I am super excited to be joined by Lauren Faber O'Connor and Nancy Sutley. So if I could potentially ask them to please come up on stage, if you will, with me via Zoom. Because on behalf of the USGBC-LA team, I'd like to present to them both the Municipal Innovation Award for the City of Los Angeles and the LA DWP for the LA 100, the 100% renewable energy study. I think it's a fantastic achievement, and congratulations. And we at USGBC-LA look forward to partnering with you to help make this plan a reality. And for those of you in the audience who have not yet read through the plan, please do so. It was conducted by the great nerds and experts at NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Fantastic folks, and it's a very, very thorough analysis. And with that, I'd like for us to transition into a quick panel chat. So Nancy, let's start with you first. So both you and I worked at the federal level at the White House. And during our time there, I know that I certainly took lessons learned from state and local governments and their policies and adapted them for federal. What do you hope for some key takeaways for other municipalities might be out of this effort? And how might this impact or influence other local governments?
Well, thanks, Christine, and thanks for the award. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody at LA DWP who worked very hard on that study, we're very honored. And we did have a really good time working with the nerds from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and we matched them nerd for nerd, so we're good. Yeah, so I always answer the federal government question with, we want money from them, but I think beyond that, I think it is important. One of the things that we didn't necessarily set out to do with LA 100, but I think it ended up being an important part of the findings was that we can do this, that there are not one, not two, not three, but hundreds of feasible pathways to get to 100% clean energy. And, in that way, although we love Los Angeles and it's a very special place, we're not that special, and that other communities and other utilities, other power providers can find those feasible scenarios that can get us to 100% clean energy. And the other thing that we found, which we didn't start out looking for, was that not only could we do it by 2045, but we can do it by 2035. And so, not to steal Lauren's thunder here, but the mayor in his State of the City said, go figure out now how to do that by 2035. So I think for me, for communities around the country, this really is something that we can do, that we have the technology to do, and we can figure out how to do that. And I think it will take a partnership, with the federal government, with policymakers, with the utilities, both public and private, with the the renewable energy providers and the the entrepreneurs and the inventors, to make sure that we can do it in a way that is cost effective and reliable for everybody in the U.S.
Thank you. Great. So Lauren, let's now turn to you. The LA 100 plan, of course, has substantial benefits for the environment and for people, which enable us to build healthy lives and healthy communities. Can you talk a little bit more about the steps that you and the mayor's office are taking to ensure that this plan endures beyond the mayor's immediate tenure?
Sure. And, first of all, thank you so much for the beautiful award, which I am displaying proudly. And I'm happy for it to be blocking other less beautiful parts of my makeshift office of the last year and a half. So it really means a lot to me personally. It really means a lot to the mayor and to the entire city that you've recognized the effort that is LA 100. So Ben and the whole USGBC LA team, first of all, congratulations to the vet. Christine, yay, love to see you in this position too. But it really means a lot that you guys have taken the time to call attention to this work. And it's incredibly important because of all the benefits that you're rightly recognizing will accrue to communities, to people here in LA. And I have to tell you that, what Nancy is saying is true in terms of where we ended up is not necessarily where we expected to 3.5 years ago when we began to undertake this effort. And, side story is that Mayor Garcetti was testifying before Congress, before the U.S. Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, about 2 weeks before we fully released LA 100. And I have to say that he was essentially the lone voice in that hearing, saying with confidence, because of the hundreds of millions of scenarios that were tested by the most important the most important renewable energy experts in the world, he was able to say with confidence that we can get to a 100%, a grid run on 100% renewable energy reliably and affordably. But this message needs to be told, and the partners need to be really confident and bold in terms of coming forward with the solutions that Nancy's talking about, because there's still a lot of folks who don't believe us. And so this is really important to be calling attention to, not just the analysis, but the fact that we're moving ahead because it's so important. And we're moving ahead. And this is, a lot that sits in Nancy and DWP's territory, but we know that no matter what, we, as you say, need to institutionalize and put in what we've called a number of no regrets strategies, so that we're starting right now, so that we're not waiting and we're not inhibiting any kinds of accelerations that we may want to see. But the 2035, the 10-year acceleration of our goals was a really, really important one. And so, this includes a series of no regret strategies through continued rapid deployment of local rooftop solar, through an expanded feed-in tariff program, through distributed energy resources RFP that DWP is continuing to work through and expand, through a number of different areas. There's thousands of megawatts of renewable energy under consideration by the department right now. Nancy can talk in great detail on the work to begin transmission line construction and upgrades across multiple corridors. It's really exciting work to ensure that we're not waiting for any additional thing to tell us that this is the route down which we're going, not to mention the official strategic long-term resource planning that DWP does. We're also really happy to see that City Council is endorsing this work, and there was a motion that was put forward by Councilmember Krikorian and Councilmember O'Farrell just a couple of weeks ago as well, really directing DWP to get started on this work. And so it's really important belts and suspenders that we're all working together, the mayor's office, the council, and the department.
That's great. Thank you so much. So Nancy, let's turn back to you. And equity, of course, is a big element of our theme for this event this year. Can you talk about some of the equity implications for this plan? In order for this plan to work, right, obviously it's got to work everywhere. It can't just be the Tesla owners or just that one building that wants to electrify. What does that equity and energy burden mean for LADWP and how it engages with our more vulnerable communities?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's an incredibly important subject. And, you know, I mean, LADWP is one part of the city that touches every Angelino. I mean, every Angelino does business with us. And so, you know, we do in everything we do, we really have to, you know, take into consideration that this is an incredibly diverse city in every sense of the word. But I think particularly in the LA 100, I mean, we're trying to be very intentional about looking at the equity considerations, and there will be some further work going on to ensure that the implementation plans, both in the shorter term, as Lauren was saying, and in the long term, take into account equity considerations, and also a commitment to, as we make investments in local resources and distributed energy resources in different programs, that we really target, you know, at least 50% of that towards disadvantaged communities. And so we're trying to be very intentional about that. And then also, you know, as we go into the more specific planning, so what LA 100 gave us a lot of scenarios that laid out pathways, and now we actually have to start moving, as Lauren said, down the pathway and to do the planning and projects, you know, starting yesterday, you know, through the next 10 years and the next 15 years and the next 20 years. And so in doing that, one of the criteria that goes into sort of evaluating the different pathways and the different scenarios is really making sure that we are not burdening disadvantaged communities or not shifting pollution to disadvantaged communities. So that's an intentional part of the plan. And then finally is really making sure that those benefits are distributed and reach all of our communities. So, you know, we started, you know, kind of almost at the same time, I think, as LA 100, looking at these equity metrics. So looking at our programs, looking at our operations, and making sure that they considered everybody, every community, and particularly our disadvantaged communities. And we've really started to develop programs around that. So outreach and incentives towards disadvantaged communities to make sure that everybody in Los Angeles benefits from this transition.
Thank you. And follow-on question to that, how does that then also tie into workforce development, and what do we need to do to ensure that today's workers do indeed have a place in that future cleaner energy economy?
Yeah, and again, I think you got to be intentional about it. You have to look at the impacts, and so, you know, we've engaged various experts to help us look at the workforce issues, and then really try to develop those programs that will ensure that and not just that jobs are created, but they're good jobs, and that there is a trained workforce here in Los Angeles to undertake that. You know, and so we've looked at both the impact on jobs within LADWP, which is a big employer and has for generations provided a pathway into the middle class for thousands of families in Los Angeles, and we want to maintain that. We want LADWP to be an employer that helps lift up the lives of Angelinos. And then also the kinds of investments that we're talking about and the scale of the investments we're talking about locally in transmission, in distributed resources, in energy storage, in transportation electrification, and in electrifying buildings, and doing all of that. I mean, we're talking again that billions and billions of dollars of investments that we will need people to carry out. And so And those jobs are going to be here in Los Angeles. We can't export those jobs, or they can't be done somewhere else. They have to be done here. So we think there's tremendous opportunity to grow good jobs in this transition.
Great. Lauren, let's turn back to you. So earlier in the day, we had a great chat with respect to C40 and its initiatives with the mayors of Phoenix and Austin. I'd be curious to know, like, how do we stack up against some of the other C40 municipalities, and to whom might we be thinking about looking at for best or better practices as we move forward?
You had some great mayors on earlier. That was really great. If I could just take one sec to step back also on the question that you were asking, Nancy. I'm glad you asked about the workforce. So I feel like I need to touch on there how important that is, though. Even programs that are, being funded out of the mayor's justice budget that was just passed by city council, longstanding programs like LA Rise, where we're working with organizations like Grid Alternatives on, skill building for solar installation, for battery installation, for EV infrastructure, all of those things for, high barrier populations where we're helping subsidize those wages and, build those pipelines. Those are things that we're doubling down on. But, to your question about how do we make sure this endures, we have to be able to demonstrate the benefits. And so, what Nancy, I just wanted to make sure people heard, what Nancy said about making sure that 50% of the benefits are going to the communities in greatest need, disadvantaged communities. That's surpassing the state's leading standards. That's surpassing Justice 40. I mean, that's a major commitment on the part of the city to look at how are we ramping down fossil fuels in communities as quickly as possible. How are we delivering cost savings and energy affordability benefits? Because LA 100 shows us that you invest in energy efficiency, you invest in electrification, you just increase the benefits and you lower the costs of this transition. And so I really appreciate how seriously the department is leaning in on those issues. But as it's wonderful to talk about these issues, not just here in LA, but also with our colleagues around the country and around the world. And I think that we do stack up pretty well, but if the mayor were here, and I wonder if he said this in his comments before, I didn't actually see what he said, but he says that good mayors borrow and great mayors steal. And so that's, he is all about learning from peers and working together and setting and surpassing each other's bars. I say we stack up because, the cities do look to LA for a number of things. We are the #1 solar city in the country. We do have the most EV charging infrastructure of any city in the United States. We're the first to begin to put in motion a mandatory pilot for zero emission curbside freight delivery. We are, leading on EV building codes. There's a number of areas there. We have some of the most comprehensive building energy efficiency and water conservation and benchmarking requirements. There's so much that we are doing on the mobility side, largest infrastructure program in the country, ×2 with Measure M. So there are cities that come to us for learnings, but there's such a richness of examples around the world as well. I mean, on electrification of transportation, Oslo is sort of this gold standard. In 2020, the stats show that over 70% of vehicles on the road have a plug in Oslo, and over 50% of the vehicles purchased were battery electric vehicles last year. So their grid is doing fine, and so there's a lot that we can see about the rapid deployment of infrastructure and behavior change. London is doing amazing things on their electric buses and electric taxis. We've been to London. We have a lot of back and forth with them as well on this very, very issue. It's really incredible, when we look at some work on zero emission areas, so really creating zones in the city that are completely zero emission from the transportation perspective. It's hard for a city like LA to compare ourselves to a Barcelona, a London, an Amsterdam, or really anywhere in the Netherlands, to be honest. They're doing so much, but they have very clear city centers, unlike a place like Los Angeles. And so the work that we do are really neighborhood and place-based. But I think that from a engage communities, and how do we incorporate racial and environmental justice issues in the process and decision making. A lot of cities do look to LA and other US cities who are grappling with these issues in a different way than others around the world. So that's I think another area that is of great interest. And then of course other cities in across the Northern Europe are doing some incredible things on clean construction in buildings and embedded carbon, really leading the world and helping move that supply chain. And that's something that we're very interested in and are taking on in LA as well.
Great, thank you. I prefer to call it leveraging rather than borrowing or stealing per se. Leverage. Okay. So to build on Lauren's point, Nancy, we're obviously a super large region. And of course, approximately 40% of Angelenos live in multifamily residences. And of course, we may be working from home a little while longer with COVID, which of course would impact our commercial building owners as well. How might we think about how do we overcome the challenge of incentives, between that landlord-tenant tension?
Yeah, well, obviously that's an important sector. I mean, we can't meet our energy efficiency goals. We can't meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction goals unless we can reduce energy use in multifamily and commercial buildings. So stay tuned on Tuesday. We've got something on our board agenda, about to approve a new program looking at, get the name right, comprehensive multifamily retrofits. Comprehensive affordable multifamily retrofits. I'm trying to remember what the A was called. Yes. So we're going to ramp up our programs there, and that'll be a very important offering. But I think we've generally taken the view that we have to be able to reach people living in multifamily homes, and in commercial, and so part of it starts with just, we believe in free stuff. So we have had for a number of years now a commercial direct install program where we've gone to commercial customers and basically given them a bunch of lighting retrofits and other upgrades for free. We do something similar on the single family residential side. But we've done things like distributed LED light bulbs to every person, every household in the city. 3 times, I think we've done that. So we're really trying to reach people where they are, and then looking at all of our programs, and we're truly trying to understand. So, for example, on transportation electrification, we offer very generous rebates for commercial EV charger installations, and at this point, I'll forget what the exact number is, but many of them coming right now are for installation in multifamily dwellings. So we're excited to see that, and we actually offer a premium incentive if you do it in a disadvantaged community. So $1,000 more in a disadvantaged community. So we are trying to overcome some of the challenges there are. And, I have to say, not just because this is the U.S. Green Building Council, but the folks, there's such interest and commitment on the part of everybody in the building sector in Los Angeles to seeing our buildings be part of the sustainability solution. And so, whether it's building owners, architects, designers, folks who do, the retrofits and others, it's terrific to see the level of interest and people's commitment to upgrade our buildings. And the last thing I would just say is just, the city has done more than its part in terms of not just our building codes, but also in the existing building energy and water efficiency ordinance. And so that's been super helpful also in terms of generating information for us.
Great, yes. I know that I'm super looking forward then to that Tuesday board meeting. and seeing the announcements thereafter. Lauren, we'll give you the last word and an opportunity to further inspire this audience. As you may imagine, this audience is rather sophisticated about this topic overall, and of course is very action oriented, and we'd like to make sure that we're doing our part. How do we help make this LA 100 plan real? Like, what kind of investments should our business owners and professionals be making in their capabilities in their workforce?
Well, I think that the study showed us that, and perhaps maybe confirmed for us what I think we maybe felt we knew and were experiencing, but confirmed in a much more comprehensive way, that energy efficiency and decarbonization go hand in hand, and how important building electrification is to the overall transition from a health and environmental perspective, as well as a cost savings. And so being able to do those look at our buildings and consider our buildings as part of the overall grid, it's a grid solution, and having that interaction with the grid is so important. And that comes from the technology that's deployed in our buildings, but also just really how we are thinking about buildings as the important places where people are living, working, recreating. We need healthy, livable spaces that do, when invested in, save money, and that can partner now really explicitly, we show, with the utility to be part of the solution of the overall zero carbon, decarbonized grid transition. And that is everything from technology that helps with some of that permanent efficiency gains that we have and that maybe don't depend as much on behavior change. There's obviously work to be part of that load shifting and like peak shaving, which can really, really help as DWP is planning out its, is doing its resource planning, and how to make our buildings more interactive from a charging perspective, interacting from a dispatchable load perspective. These are areas that now DWP, I think, is really diving into, and you can see that through the DER RFP that DWP has out, is it's really thinking about not just like where on the grid to place things, but how can buildings be part of those solutions. And by developing out things like the program for low-income multifamily that's going forward next week. This is really about investing in our customers, investing in our residents, so that their buildings are prioritized as being those healthy, affordable buildings.
Great. Thank you both so much for being with us here today. And we're incredibly, truly fortunate to have great leaders like you who are knowledgeable, who care about our communities. And I know that for me personally, that are women. It's amazing. So thank you both again for taking the time to be with us here today. And Ben, with that, let me turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you, Nancy and Lauren. It's such an honor and a pleasure to have you here this afternoon and to work with you throughout the rest of the year. And thank you for your leadership and service for our city and for our region. With that, we have just a couple more things to close out the day today. We're going to hear the last of our Right Girl poems. This one's called Winged Land by Sofia Aguilar. I think we need audio there, Farah.
Winged Land. I hope you enjoy.
I'm going to start over again.
Hi everyone, my name is Sofia Aguilar and I'm a Right Girl alum from the class of 2017. And I'm here to read my poem, Winged Land. I hope you enjoy. Winged Land. I'm falling in love with the birds. Not enough on our land to feed the heels, crusts of bread, corn kernels and wild cherries their stems, sugar water and blossom sweetness for the hummingbirds. But too many to point at with a name, their feathers blending with sky, their whistles and chirps and fast fluttering of wings, the kind of song that comes from beaks and hollow bones. I watch the monarchs in the milkweed growing tall beside the fountain place, where the birds wash their plumage clean. These butterflies who begin life as someone else, eat the leaves of their home and walk through life on 6 true limbs and at least 3 monikers depending on your birthland. The common tiger, the black-veined brown, the nectar-minded wanderer once so close to extinction, endangerment, but still alive. Still themselves by what keeps their bodies free, a half adoration, half envy of flying things. So I hold tight in summer and spring to the earnest calling of birds, the silent miracle of butterfly birth, new life before the fall. Before the flight migration south to my motherland and theirs, Mexico, our wintering ground until next year, when this growing winged land of ours blooms itself anew. Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Aguilar.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you to all of our Right Girl poets for today. It's so important to mix a little bit of art in the work we do and remember that we're all humans trying to communicate with each other here on this earth, even though it may not have seemed that way over the past 14 or 15 months. It was a great day. The content was really inspiring today. I hope you can join us for tomorrow for Community Green. We're going to have our green school sessions for kids. So tell your friends or family members and bring your kids tomorrow. These are the same classes we do for elementary and secondary school now to teach sustainability. We're going to have those tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're going to have a Green Jobs Fair at 10 a.m. also with 8 great employers tomorrow. We have an amazing Youth in Action panel featuring 3 youth talking about what they're doing in terms of activism around climate change. We have some more keynotes tomorrow, and we have a performance to close out the day from A.Y. Young, who's completely powered by renewable energy and is a hip hop artist who's really out there promoting sustainability for the world. So we hope you can join us tomorrow. Thank you for joining us for today, and thank you for all of your hard work and time to everyone who made this happen, our committee, our team. This is the 20th Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo. That's amazing, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the rest of it. Have a good evening, everyone.